You can hit every number, execute every strategy, and still fail as a leader because leadership isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are. Did you know that CEOs with high character ratings deliver an ROA or a return on assets of 9.35%, while those with low character ratings deliver less than 2%? That's a fivefold difference. On today's episode, we're digging into the data behind core leadership values and why your team is desperate for hope and trust, and how to discover the principles that actually drive performance. Plus, I've got a special announcement at the end of the episode. You don't want to miss it. Please stay tuned. It all starts now on Engage and Inspire. Hello, my leaders, and welcome back to Engage and Inspire. I am your host, Scott Liles. Now, let me ask you a question to start this episode off with. Have you ever worked for someone or with someone who was incredibly talented, maybe even brilliant, but something just felt off? Maybe they hit their numbers every quarter. Maybe they were the smartest person in the room, but the team around them was always anxious, disengaged, or just counting the days until they left. There was no connection, no loyalty. Here's the hard truth. That disconnect isn't a skills gap. It's a values gap. We often treat leadership like it's purely a science of strategy, KPIs, and execution. And sure, those things matter, but the foundation, the operating system that runs underneath all of it is character. It's your core values. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're not just going to talk about why values are a nice to have. We're going to look at the hard data that proves values-led leadership is the only path to sustainable high performance. By the end of this episode, you're going to have a clear framework for identifying your own core values. You'll understand what your team secretly needs from you, and you'll walk away with a practical exercise to start using it today. So let's turn the compass inward and start discovering your core leadership values. All right, so I want to start by killing a myth. There is a persistent belief in business that character and values are soft topics, that they belong in a church or a therapist office, but not in the boardroom or on the shop floor. Now, that is not only wrong, it's financially dangerous. Now, let me introduce you to a study published by KRW International. Researchers looked at 84 CEOs. They surveyed more than 8,000 employees and asked them to rate their CEO on specific character traits, things like integrity, empathy, accountability, and forgiveness. Then they looked at the company's financial performance. Specifically, they looked at return on assets, or ROA, which is a measure of how efficiently a company uses its assets to generate profit. It's a simple formula of your net income divided by your total assets. Now, here's what they found. The CEOs who scored in the top quartile, or the top 25% for character, the ones who employees saw as honest, compassionate, and responsible, they delivered an average 2-year ROA of 9.35%. Now, compare that to the CEOs who scored in the bottom quartile for character. Their average 2-year ROA was just 1.93%. Now let that sink in. That is a fivefold difference. If I told you there was a stock out there that could return 5 times more than another, you would immediately invest everything you had into it, right? Of course you would. Character isn't soft. It's a competitive advantage. But let's look through the other lens. Let's stop looking at the leaders and start looking at the followers. Because leadership doesn't exist without followers. Gallup recently released their massive 2025 report called the Global Leadership Report: What Followers Want. They surveyed people across 52 countries, representing over 3/4 of the world's adult population. They asked one simple question, and that question was, think about the leaders who have had the most positive influence on your life. What words best describe them? What do you think the number one answer was? Was it decisive? Was it charismatic? Was it rich? No. The number one answer was hope. Over 56% of respondents associated positive leadership with providing hope, vision, and inspiration. So think about that. In a world that feels increasingly uncertain, not only economically, but politically and socially, people are striving for leaders who can look ahead and say, there is a better future and we can get there together. And what came right after hope? Well, that was trust. Followers need honesty, integrity, and reliability. And then after trust, compassion and stability. So here's the bottom line. If you want to engage your team, if you want to inspire performance, you have to offer hope. But you can't offer hope unless you are trustworthy, and you can't be trustworthy unless you know what you stand for. And that brings us back to values. So how do we actually identify these values? How do we move from knowing that values matter to actually living them out? Now, I want to introduce you to a framework that comes from the world of higher education and leadership development. It's called the social change model of leadership development. Now, this model breaks leadership down into 3 dimensions: the individual values, the group values, and the community values. And within those dimensions, it identifies what they call the 7 C's of leadership. Now, let's walk through them because this is going to give you a practical way to audit your own leadership. All right, first we have the individual values. This is the you dimension. These are the values you have to cultivate inside yourself before you can lead anyone else. So the first C is consciousness of self. This is self-awareness. Do you know what your strengths are? Do you know what triggers you? Do you understand the attitudes and beliefs that drive your decisions? You cannot lead others if you are a mystery to yourself. As a Greek philosopher once said, know thyself. That's where leadership starts. The second C is congruence. This is the heavy hitter. Congruence means thinking, feeling, and acting with consistency. It's aligning your behavior with your beliefs. When you are congruent, people don't have to wonder where you stand. They don't have to read between the lines. You are authentic, and authenticity breeds trust. Now, the third C is commitment. Commitment is the fuel. It's the passion and intensity that drives you. And by extension, it drives your team. If you're not committed to the mission, why should anyone else be? But here's the nuance. Commitment doesn't mean stubbornness. It means sustained energy towards a goal. Next, the group values. These are the team dimension. Leadership doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in relationship. So your fourth C is collaboration. Collaboration is more than just playing nice. It's about leveraging trust to empower others to do their best work. It's the recognition that the collective intelligence of the team will always surpass the individual. When you collaborate, you multiply your impact. The fifth C is common purpose. Have you ever been on a team where everyone was working hard, but they were all working in different directions? That's what happens when there is no common purpose. A leader's job is to work with the team to articulate a shared vision, to make sure everyone knows not just the what they are doing, but the why behind their doing it. The sixth C is controversy with civility. This one is critical, especially today. In any high functioning team, disagreements are inevitable. In fact, it's pretty healthy. Diversity of thought leads to better decisions, but it has to be handled with civility. It's putting the issue on the table without attacking the person. It's disagreeing without being disagreeable. And finally, the common values. These are the mission dimensions. And there's only one C here. This is your final C. This is citizenship. Now, citizenship is about social responsibility. It's the recognition that your team or organization doesn't exist in a bubble. You are part of a larger community, a neighborhood, an industry, a society. And with leadership comes the responsibility to be a good steward of your influence. Now, wrapping all of these together is the central goal of the model: change. Leadership is about creating positive change. And these 7 values are the compass that ensures you are changing things for the better. So, we have the framework. We know the why values matter, and we know the different dimensions they live in. But how do you actually discover your personal core values? You can't just pick them up off of a motivational poster. They have to be unearthed. They're already inside you. We just need to dig them out. Now, I want to give you 2 distinct exercises here. They approach the question from different angles. One looks backwards at your history, and one looks forward at your impact. If you do both, you will have a very clear picture of what you stand for. So exercise number 1. This is the peak experience autopsy. It's going to get a little morbid there, I know. This first exercise is about looking backwards. It's an autopsy of your own history. I want you to get a notebook or open a blank document. Block out 15 minutes of uninterrupted time. Think back across your entire career or even your entire life and identify 2 specific moments. Moment A. This is going to be a time when you were at your absolute best as a leader. Maybe it was a project that exceeded all expectations. Maybe it was a time you helped an employee navigate a personal crisis, and then you watched them thrive because of your support. Maybe it was a moment you stood up for something right, even though it was politically unpopular. What I want you to do here is I want you to write that story down. Don't summarize it. Write it out. Describe the scene. Who was there? What was at stake? What did you actually do? How did your body feel? Were you calm? Were you energized? Now here's the key question. What values was I living in that moment? If you were helping someone through a struggle, your core value might be compassion. If you were holding the line on a tough standard, your core value might be integrity or excellence. If you were pushing through fatigue to achieve a goal, your core value might be perseverance. Write down the words that come to mind. Now, moment B. I want you to do the same thing, but this time identify a time when you were at your absolute worst as a leader. Maybe you lost your temper. Maybe you threw someone under the bus. Maybe you cut a corner to hit a deadline. Write that story out, the same level of detail. What happened? What provoked it? How did you feel right before things went sideways. Now ask the opposite question. What value was I violating in that moment? If you were dishonest, you were violating integrity. If you were cruel, you were violating respect. If you were paralyzed by fear of failure, you were violating courage. Our greatest strengths are often the shadow side of our values. When we violate our core values, we feel it in our bones. That feeling of, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's a compass pointing directly at what you actually believe. Now, exercise number 2. This is the eulogy exercise. This second exercise is completely different. It's not about looking backwards. It's about looking forward. It's about legacy. Now, I didn't come up with this. It's often attributed to an author and a researcher, Brené Brown, and it's incredibly powerful. I want you to close your eyes for a moment, or you can do this later when you're not driving and you're sitting at home quietly. Imagine that it's 30 or 40 years in the future. You've lived a full life and your time on earth is done. Now imagine you're a fly on the wall at your own funeral. Sorry, it got a little dark here, but bear with me. Now, you can't be seen, but you can hear everything. I want you to listen to 3 different conversations. The first conversation is I want you to listen to what your family is saying about you, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren. They aren't reading your resume. They aren't talking about your job title or your salary. What are they saying? What do they miss about you? What did you teach them? How did you make them feel? The words they use: he always made time for us. She taught me to be brave. She was kind. Those are your values reflected through the lens of love. The second conversation, we walk over to a different group. Listen to what your close friends are saying about you. Not your acquaintances, but your people. The ones who knew you when you were struggling. The ones you called at 2 a.m. What are they saying? He was loyal. She never judged me. He showed up when it mattered. Those are your values reflected through the lens of friendship. Now, the third conversation, walk over to the group from your work, your colleagues, your team, maybe even your competitors. What are they saying? She took a chance on me when no one else would. He taught me how to think. She ran the business with integrity. Those are your values reflected through the lens of your professional impact. Here's the hard question. Are the words you want them to say the same words they would say today? If not, that gap that's there between the legacy you want and the impact you're having, this is where your work begins. That gap defines your core values. Take 15 minutes this week to do both exercises. Write down the words that come up. Look for the patterns. Those patterns are your leadership values. Discovering your values is about intentionality. It's about showing up every day as the person you want to be. And part of showing up is taking care of yourself, because when you look good, you feel confident. And when you feel confident, you lead better. That's why I'm proud to partner with Pins and Aces. Now, Pins and Aces is a premier brand for great apparel. We're talking polos, hats, club head covers, and other gear for the course. Whether you're in a boardroom, on a golf course, traveling to a conference, or just grabbing a cup of coffee, their gear is built to perform and keep you looking sharp. They use premium fabrics that move with you and look great, whether you're dressing up or dressing down. Now, because you're part of the Engage and Inspire family, I've secured an exclusive discount just for our listeners. Now, here's what you do. You go to pinsandaces.com, that's PINS andaces.com. Load up your cart with the gear that you need to succeed in the office or on the course. And at checkout, you enter my discount code HELM. That's HELM. And you'll get a 21% discount off your entire order. Again, that's pensandaces.com. Code HELM at checkout for 21% off. Look good, feel confident, and lead well. Now, we've covered a lot of ground today, so let's bring it all together. We know that values drive performance. The data is clear here. High character leaders outperform their low character counterparts by a 5-fold margin. We know that our teams are desperate for leaders who can offer them hope, trust, compassion, and stability. They don't just need a boss. They need a leader who stands for something. And we know that the journey starts with self-awareness. It starts with consciousness of self. It starts with congruence. It starts with asking the hard questions about who we are and what we stand for. And I'll be honest with you, this work isn't easy. Looking in the mirror is sometimes harder than looking at a spreadsheet. But it's the most important work you'll ever do as a leader. Now, if you've been listening today and you're thinking, Scott, I know I need to work on this, but I don't know how to translate it into action with my team, I want to leave you with one final resource. I wrote a book called How Can I Help? Unlocking Employee Potential Through Compassionate Leadership. It's a guide to moving from a mindset of command and control to a mindset of service and support. Because at the end of the day, if your values aren't geared towards service, if they aren't geared towards asking, how can I help? Then you're missing the point of leadership. Now, you can find How Can I Help on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in paperback, or you can download it for Kindle. You can visit my website, leadwithhelm.com, and click on the Buy My Book button at the top of the page. There's some solid research in there that I conducted that you may find very interesting. Now, go out there this week and take some time to reflect. Ask your team the hard questions. Find out what you stand for. And I promise you, the people you lead will thank you for it. I'd like to thank you for continuing to listen to this show. I'd like to thank you for your continued support. Remember pensandaces.com, my discount code HELM, and then also go pick up your copy of How Can I Help on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and get it for your Kindle. Now, until next time, remember, keep engaging and keep inspiring. Take care.